For me, it started with the music. This song, Ballad of a Thin Man, the live version that's in the Scorsese doc, that was my way in. 170% in everything I'm doing, no but there. I'm giving it my all. Something like the Dylan Project, these aren't...
She thought she knew him, but the truth changes everything. To the world, Timothée Chalamet was the charming, soft-spoken actor with an indie edge and flawless reputation. To Kylie Jenner, he was the unexpected love interest who added mystery and prestige to her life. But behind the scenes, insiders claim there was another Timothée, one with a world Kylie never got to see, a life carefully kept out of public view, and secrets that could change how she and everyone else sees him forever. To the outside world, Timothée Chalamet is the perfect blend of artistry and charm.
Please welcome to the stage, Timothée Chalamet.
A rare Hollywood figure who manages to be both a critical darling and a pop culture phenomenon. His rise to fame wasn't built on controversy or cheap headlines. It came through skill, charisma, and a kind of old-school mystique that's almost extinct in modern celebrity culture. Every interview is measured but effortless. Every outfit a calculated statement that somehow feels spontaneous. Fans see him as the humble, fashion-forward star who can sit front row at a Chanel show one week and then disappear into a quiet indie film set the next. His brand thrives on contrast, equal parts approachable and unattainable.
How can you avoid the pillow face when you're considering derma fillers? Kylie Jenner is a perfect example of what we mean by the pillow face.
He rarely shares personal details, and when he does, they're wrapped in wit or vague enough to spark conversation without offering real insight. That's the magic. He gives the world just enough to keep them wanting more. When Kylie Jenner stepped into his orbit, she wasn't just dating a man, she was stepping into a narrative. This was the Timothée the public adored. The charismatic figure walking hand in hand at glamorous events, the supportive date at the US Open, the man who could light up a room without saying much at all. In photos, they looked like a power couple who had effortlessly bridged two very different worlds. Her reality TV and business empire. His award, season credibility, and high fashion cachet. It's easy to see why this image worked so well. Kylie's brand has always thrived on controlled glamour and being the center of attention, and Timothée's understated mystique provided a striking counterbalance. To her fans, he looked like the perfect accessory. Cool, cultured, and just mysterious enough to make the pairing feel elevated. But Hollywood is a city built on illusions. For every carefully posed red carpet moment, there are a dozen stories happening in the shadows. And while Kylie knew the public Timothée better than most, insiders claim there was another version of him.
I'm live on air now.
Oh, nice. To do something? Yeah, a little something. Cool.
One she never got to see in the spotlight, but one that was quietly shaping their relationship behind closed doors. Long before Kylie Jenner's name was linked to Timothée Chalamet, there were quiet conversations in certain Hollywood circles about the life he kept far away from the cameras. Not scandals in the tabloid sense. There were no explosive headlines or messy public feuds, but subtler, more calculated patterns that people inside the industry had learned to notice. According to insiders, Timothée has always been deliberate about who gets to see the real him. His public persona is polished, curated, and deliberately charming.
Timothée Chalamet's role as Bob Dylan landed him a BAFTA nomination, double duty on SNL, and now a Lion Bike violation.
But privately, he's known for having an extremely exclusive inner circle. Friends, collaborators, and confidants who operate in spaces that rarely overlap with his public image. Some of these connections, sources claim, are more about strategy than friendship, aligning him with powerful figures who can open doors, secure roles, or keep him in the right conversations with the right people. There have even been quiet suggestions that some of Timothée's past relationships, while not necessarily fake, were mutually beneficial arrangements, pairings that boosted his exposure at key career moments, or
Pets think I'm hot. Stormy thinks I'm the most beautiful mommy in the whole world. She tells me all the time.
gave him credibility in new circles, before naturally fizzling out once their purpose had been served. These whispers have never been proven, but in Hollywood, the absence of public proof often means very little. The real deals are made in private, and the people involved rarely speak on record. For Kylie, who came into the relationship from a world where family, business, and personal life constantly overlap, Timothée's compartmentalization might not have been immediately obvious. At first, it could have looked like normal privacy. But to those who know the industry well, the signs were there. The separation between his red carpet plus ones and his late night dinner guests.
Probably like 6 months ago, I posted this huge miss of a video in which I essentially tried to pin the insecurities of an entire generation.
The selective way he integrated partners into his professional circle. The instinct to keep his most valuable relationships out of the spotlight entirely. And while Kylie may have thought she was stepping into every part of his life, the truth, according to insiders, is that she was only being introduced to one side of it, the side the public was meant to see. The rest stayed hidden, even from her. As the months went on, Kylie Jenner began to notice something about Timothée Chalamet's world. It wasn't a single, unified circle, but two entirely different ones that rarely, if ever, overlapped. On one side was the version of Timothée everyone knew. The film premieres, the Fashion Week appearances.
My hair is not as nice as Kylie's, obviously, but other than that, it's actually really, really impressive. AI.
The front row seats at high-profile events. This was the world Kylie was invited into. The one filled with photographers, stylists, publicists, and industry elites who thrived under the glare of the spotlight. It was glamorous, safe, and perfectly curated for public consumption. But insiders say there was another side to Timothée's life, one Kylie wasn't always included in. This was a more private, insular circle made up of longtime friends, underground creatives, and people who existed far from the Hollywood PR machine. They met in hidden restaurants, exclusive, members-only clubs, and late-night gatherings that were never photographed. To the outside world, these events didn't exist.
Kylie Jenner is shocking everyone after she posted a TikTok video that confirms she's pregnant with Timothée Chalamet's baby. So in the viral TikTok...
And to Kylie, they might as well have been invisible. Sources claim this divide wasn't accidental. Timothée was skilled at compartmentalizing his life, keeping certain relationships and spaces completely separate. Even people he was close to didn't always get full access to both sides. For someone like Kylie, whose brand is built on total transparency with her audience, the idea of being kept out of entire parts of her partner's world was unfamiliar, even unsettling. At first, it could be brushed off as privacy, but over time, that separation created questions. Why weren't certain friends ever around when she was? Why were there parts of his schedule that seemed deliberately vague?
Kylie Jenner posts on her story bottles of wine that Corey Gamble got her for her early birthday. Goes, the year I was born.
And perhaps most telling, why did she only ever see one version of Timothée, while others seemed to know a different one entirely? The answers to those questions would start to surface in whispers and sightings that didn't fit with the polished image she thought she knew. And once those cracks appeared, Kylie couldn't unsee them. It started as background noise. Small, passing mentions from people in the industry about Timothée Chalamet being spotted in places that didn't quite match the image Kylie Jenner knew. At first, it was easy to dismiss. He's a young actor in Hollywood. Of course he'd go out. But the more Kylie heard, the more it started to sound like a pattern.
Es Kylie Jenner. Mi nombre es Kylie Jenner. Y este es...
Mi nuevo.
Mi nuevo.
And not one she was a part of. Insiders claim Timothée had a habit of disappearing into nights that weren't documented. The kind where no red carpets or publicists were involved. These weren't the polished dinner parties and black tie events Kylie attended with him. They were low-lit invitation-only gatherings in hidden clubs or private lofts, sometimes tied to the fashion world's after-hours scene, other times to creative circles with no social media presence at all. No photos, no tags, no proof, just the occasional sighting that trickled back through the grapevine. For Kylie, whose entire life has been built on curated visibility,
on Tuesday, August 5th, Kylie Jenner went to Sushi Park in West Hollywood for dinner with some friends. The 27-year-old wore
this was foreign territory. She wasn't being excluded from every outing. She still had her place in Timothée's public-facing world, but these private escapes painted a picture of someone living in parallel realities. One reality she was part of, one she was kept away from. Some sources say the secrecy was about maintaining boundaries and protecting relationships outside of the Hollywood PR bubble. Others whisper that it was part of a calculated effort to keep certain parts of his life untouched by the Kardashian-Jenner media machine. Either way, it left Kylie in an uncomfortable position, wondering if she was getting the whole truth or just the version of Timothée he wanted her to see.
When Timothée came in to audition, it was the best audition in history, really.
And the deeper she looked, the more she realized this wasn't just about nightlife. It was about priorities and where she ranked in them. The signs were already there in his work commitments, and soon they would become impossible to ignore. If there was one thing Kylie Jenner began to see clearly, it was that Timothée Chalamet's career came first. Always. On the surface, that wasn't surprising. He's one of the most in-demand actors of his generation, with a schedule packed from dawn until long after midnight. But insiders say this wasn't just about being busy. It was about a calculated approach to when, where, and how he let Kylie into his world. Patterns began to emerge. Timothée was suddenly available for high-profile outings with Kylie when they aligned with his own film promotions or fashion contracts. A courtside appearance here, a viral awards show, moment there. It was the kind of press that boosted both of their names, but always on timelines that seemed to favor his projects. When it came to Kylie's own big moments, major product launches, brand campaigns, or family milestones, he was often absent, citing work conflicts or keeping a low profile. To some in Kylie's circle, this looked like strategy. They suspected Timothée knew exactly how to leverage the unexpected power couple narrative when it benefited him, and how to fade into the background when it didn't. In a way, it made perfect sense for his brand. His mysterious, elusive image was a selling point, and overexposure in Kylie's media-heavy world could have risked that. But for Kylie, this imbalance became harder to ignore. Her brand thrives on reciprocity. Her most successful relationships have been those where the public feels the connection is genuine, equal, and mutually beneficial. With Timothée, the optics were leaning one way, and it wasn't in her favor. The more she thought about it, the more it felt like she was a guest star in his story instead of a co-lead. And when someone as image-conscious as Kylie starts to feel like they're not in control of their own narrative, trust begins to erode fast. That erosion would only deepen when she started to uncover just how much Timothée kept to himself, even in their most private moments. One of the things that started raising red flags for Kylie Jenner was just how selectively Timothée Chalamet shared information, both about his personal life and his professional dealings. According to insiders, he had a way of keeping conversations vague, offering just enough detail to seem open while still holding the real story back.
We're the same team twice, adjustments are made. It's like a game of chess. Coach Saban knows us better than anyone on this dais.
In the beginning, Kylie might have chalked it up to privacy, but over time, she began to notice that certain friendships, collaborations, and side projects were never mentioned at all. There were entire pockets of his schedule and social life she only learned about secondhand, or not at all. Some of these connections, sources claim, were intentionally kept out of her orbit, whether to avoid press attention or simply to maintain separate worlds. There were also whispers about Timothée's habit of using highly selective communication methods, direct contact through trusted intermediaries, encrypted apps, and even untraceable burner numbers for certain conversations.
My headquarters, my offices, which I love. I think it's an amazing shower. I have no problem with it.
In Hollywood, that kind of secrecy isn't unheard of, especially for actors guarding early film deals or brand negotiations. But when it extends into personal relationships, it can create a wall that's hard to ignore. For Kylie, who built her empire on transparency with her inner circle, this secrecy felt foreign and, at times, isolating. It wasn't that she suspected every hidden detail was scandalous, but the lack of access to the full picture made her question just how much of Timothée's life she was actually part of. The effect wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. By controlling the flow of information, Timothée could dictate how close anyone, even a romantic partner,
Kylie liked my video. So if you see me with a $12,000 Birkin backpack,
could get to his true inner world. And once Kylie realized that, the dynamic between them shifted. That shift would come to a head the moment she stumbled across enough pieces of the puzzle to see the bigger picture, and realized the Timothée she knew was only half the story. For Kylie Jenner, the realization didn't come in one dramatic, movie-worthy revelation. It came in pieces. A stray comment from someone in the industry, a social media tag that didn't quite make sense, a text from a mutual acquaintance that hinted at something she hadn't been told. Each detail on its own felt small, but when Kylie began to connect them...
Kylie Jenner. It's recently been speculated that she's dissolved all her dermal filler. Honestly, it's such a refreshing...
The outline of Timothée Chalamet's double life started to come into focus. One source close to Kylie claims the breaking point was when she learned about a private gathering Timothée had attended. A night deep in the fashion world's underground scene, filled with faces and connections she'd never heard about. It wasn't the party itself that stung. It was the fact that it had been kept completely off her radar, as if there were parts of his life she was never meant to know. The more she thought about it, the more she realized this wasn't an isolated event. There had been other moments, other absences, that now took on a different meaning. Times when his busy schedule kept him away from her major events.
Okay, so we obviously all know that the most important era in American history is the King Kylie era, circa 2016. It was the...
Yet, he somehow had time for nights out she'd only hear about later. Conversations that seemed casual in the moment, but in hindsight, were carefully designed to steer her away from certain topics. Insiders say Kylie didn't explode in anger when she put the pieces together. Instead, she went quiet, a sign for those who know her that she was calculating her next move. She began pulling back, making fewer joint appearances, and leaning into her own projects and image. Her social media shifted too, with posts that subtly emphasized her independence and control, while keeping any direct reference to Timothée out of the frame.
I don't know if I'll ever see the movie. Yeah. He did this X post, I've been taught to say. It's not tweet anymore, I guess. Fucking X post.
For Kylie, the issue wasn't just what Timothée had been doing. It was that she realized she'd been dating the curated, public-friendly version of him, while another life ran in parallel, untouched and unshared. And once she saw that divide clearly, there was no unseeing it. The question then wasn't whether she'd act, it was how. And as her distance grew, it became clear she was preparing to close the chapter on a relationship that had turned into something entirely different than she thought it was. By the time Kylie Jenner began stepping back from Timothée Chalamet, the shift was obvious to anyone watching closely. The sightings slowed. The playful couple moments that once fueled social media buzz disappeared.
I just put myself in the material ad nauseum. I just threw myself into it.
And without an official announcement, the narrative quietly began to change. From Kylie and Timothée to just Kylie. For Kylie, the fallout wasn't about public drama, it was about reclaiming control. She redirected her focus toward Kylie Cosmetics, high-profile fashion deals, and curated solo appearances that reminded the world of her independent power. Every move was deliberate, projecting an image of someone who had outgrown the need for a +1 in her spotlight. Timothée's image, meanwhile, subtly shifted. While his film career stayed intact, the lifestyle coverage and pop culture hype that came from being in Kylie's orbit began to fade. He was once a fixture in the entertainment news cycle beyond his projects.
But the singing, a lot has been made of your singing and the guitar playing. And so were you always going to do that, or was that because production?
Now, most mentions were tied strictly to his work. For an actor whose cultural appeal partly thrived on being a phenomenon outside of film, that loss of mainstream crossover buzz was noticeable. Insiders say there's no bitterness on Kylie's side, just clarity. She now knows that Timothée's world was never meant to fully merge with hers, and that the version of him she experienced was only half the picture. And for someone like Kylie, half access isn't enough. Whether the two will ever cross paths again publicly is anyone's guess, but one thing is certain. Kylie has already started rewriting her own story, with her brand and her independence back at the center.
We've had Kim Kardashian on the show and Pete Davidson, and they were talking about this night. There's a picture of you guys out to...
As for Timothée, his mystique is still intact, but now there's a lingering question hanging over it. Was his double life a product of careful self-protection or a calculated choice that came at Kylie's expense? In Hollywood, the truth doesn't always surface, but the consequences always do. Kylie Jenner's romance with Timothée Chalamet began as an unexpected collision of two worlds, her high-glam empire and his low-key indie mystique. At first, it seemed like a perfect balance. She brought the power, he brought the intrigue. But behind the curated red carpet smiles and carefully timed appearances, a different reality was unfolding.
Timothée Chalamet is seen on set in New York City, portraying Bob Dylan for the film.
Insiders claim Kylie only ever saw one version of Timothée, the polished, public-friendly face the world adored, while another life ran parallel, one she was never fully invited into. From off-radar gatherings to a network of friends and habits she never met, that separation slowly chipped away at the trust and transparency she valued. In the end, Kylie didn't make a scene. She simply stepped back, reclaiming her independence and redirecting the spotlight to her own brand and success. The chapter closed without public fireworks, but the shift was unmistakable. Kylie was no longer part of Timothée's story, and Timothée was no longer part of hers. And now, the mystery isn't just about the double life Kylie discovered. It's about how many others have seen only one side of Timothée, and whether the rest of his story will ever come to light. In Hollywood, some secrets stay buried, but the ripples they cause never really fade.